Okay.
There you go. And I'll make you the host.
Okay, and Paula, real quick, how long
Sure.
what's the reasonable period of time to wait before if no one else joins us? I mean, is it,
Here comes
or-
Caroline. Caroline's joining. So at least you have her as well, but I'll still make you the host, okay?
okay, thank you.
Oh, there she
Hi,
is.
Hi, Caroline.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hi.
You made it, and you're early.
I know. It was a good night.
John and I were going to talk about this in the backyard rather than take up valuable bandwidth.
Yeah.
Well, Caroline, I don't think I copied you this morning, but I did copy the rest of the members of the Reading Avenue Commission. I did copy Ryan because I wasn't aware whether he was officially done with his committee, since he's not officially resigned yet. So I did keep him in the loop, as well as Kate Guidotti and Ann Heasley. That I've been sending emails twice this week, or twice in the last week, to Starker from Bartlett Tree, and have not. It's been crickets, absolutely nothing. So I kind of this morning I said we have a meeting tonight. It would be great to have some feedback, at least some status, some sort of a status update. And like I say, crickets. So I was hoping to be able to shed some fresh light. Otherwise, it's status quo from the last meeting. We don't need to rehash the fact that the grant application is not happening. That's water over the dam or under the bridge, and both or neither. So, John, do you have anything that you want or able to add to the meeting at this point in time?
Well, I was just curious, Brian, as to whether anybody had a guess as to why the arborist from Bartlett hasn't gotten back to you with specific recommendations. I know that he was taking notes, and I was wondering if maybe it was a matter of waiting for some sort of official budget to be put together, or some official notice from the Borough Council enumerating how much money we really had to spend this fall on this, and also whether it would be a matter of applying for a PICO grant in the fall as well, even though we were unsuccessful in getting it last year. So do you think they need some motivation as to other sources of income to promote this?
It's hard for me to speak for them, but based on the conversation as it was left in the woods, Bartlett was going to put together some pricing, some estimates, and a proposed plan of action as to how to approach the woods as an overall project. There was no discussion at that time about us giving him a budget. I think we were going to ask him to provide. We were going to work with him to develop a budget from his end. He has a much better feel for what true costs are. The other thing was, it's funny, I don't know if you were online with Paula earlier when she mentioned that the PICO grant is coming back. And something, whether we want to apply again for that is something we should talk about. That is something that I neglected to mention a moment ago.
We just got that information today, so I can send it out to all of you so you can see what it's all about. And I believe it's due the end of September, the end of October. I don't remember. It's one of those two.
Yeah. So then the PICO grant would be something that would actually go through the council, because the council's an official, if you want to say, legislative body in yard land. It would be up to the council with the responsibilities they have to apply for this grant, I suppose.
Right, which I have all my stuff from last year. So maybe Ann Heasley, which she helped me with that last year as well, could look at it again and maybe figure out what we have to do to be successful.
Okay.
Yeah, to do a little better, yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's any way we can get a post-mortem from PICO, from the grant, from the grantor about what was either lacking or whether we got some feedback as to why we didn't get it or what we could do to improve our odds or the likelihood that we could be successful.
I
Yeah,
think they just said it was the volume of applications, but I could call them and ask them anyway.
No, it would be, I think we have a phone number and or an email address from the woman that was organizing that from the PICO side.
Yes, we do. Yep.
Yeah, so it would be, maybe we could try to sharpen our approach and tailor it to meet what might make us give us a better shot at being successful.
One thing that's sometimes helpful in these cases is if you request the last few winning projects, they'll usually send you their one-page summary of what those projects were, so we can read them and see, how they framed their projects and how we might piggyback off of that style.
Okay.
good suggestion.
It would be nice to see their, if it's possible, if that includes seeing their approach and their request as well as the successful project. Seeing, what they did to get what they got. That's great. I hadn't even thought about that.
Okay. I could do that.
Cool.
The other thing I'm thinking of that might be useful to talk about is budget. I think before you meet next time that's due, and I know, Brian, we had some early conversations about if we wanted to not spend any money this year and roll the whole request to next year, or if you all had thought about that at all.
Well, there hasn't been a whole lot of discussion about that. The only thing that we know is that, I lost my train of thought. Shoot, this is being recorded, of course. That's a lovely senior moment. Shoot. Let's see, I'll come back.
Possibly, Brian, it was about we need to get an estimate from our arborist or arborists as to what can be done with the available money that we have, which is just south of, at this point, just south of $5,000. What can be done, and also how much would need to be done by professionals that have, cranes to lift out old big vines and trees, and how much could be done by amateurs, given the instruction and supervision of professionals. We really don't know what's possible with our budget. We figure something can be done, so they could maybe itemize, and prioritize what could be done to start on this woods, at least this year.
That was part of the plan that Starker was going to develop along with budgeting. And we did have some discussion about amateur versus professional. He was adamant for liability and risk and insurance reasons that, only the pros would handle the equipment. The amateurs would be donkey labor. We would be dragging, bringing materials to the chipper. We don't feed the chipper. We don't run the chipper. We don't handle chainsaws. All the amateurs do is drag materials to the machine, to the chipper. As far as cranes and heavy equipment, based on what we saw, I don't think there's anything there that would require any heavy equipment. I think it's the way it stands right now, short of something going in to grind out any roots and stumps that might be left over from some of the bigger trees. But from what I saw, the bigger trees are staying. It's the smaller scrub stuff and all the vines and the crazy stuff that it's just scrubby stuff. That's the stuff that's going to be disappearing first pass. So I think going back to where I started, we're looking for Bartlett to give us some direction. Now, one of the things that the one thing he thought was most important, and I felt the same way, is what they call an inventory or survey. They go and spend a couple days with a couple people and figure out what's there. Then go back and develop, okay, this is what we've got, this is where it is, this is where we can go from here, as far as staging it, as far as the steps, as far as actual work. in the way of removals. And then once that's done, one can start to develop a planting plan as to what's going to go where, what makes the most sense. So, but the key is having a survey, which is it's not a cheap endeavor. I mean, it's going to be every bit of my guess is between $5,000 and $7,000 just for the survey. And that's when Starker mentioned the Bartlett Foundation, which was the group of those over there that would provide free services to those that need it, that fit their profile, fit their business profile, and their what they would consider a worthy event or a worthy group.
How do we apply for that?
He was going to talk to his people about that. Then we'd find out what's involved. It's something that they'll either. I don't know what's involved with it. He wasn't guaranteeing anything, but he thought this might be based on a smaller scale. That it might be a good opportunity for the foundation. The other thing that I don't know if this is small. It's half tongue in cheek. But he said, if does Yardley need a cell phone tower? And he said many times these cell phone tower people will fully fix, repair, renovate, do anything to the area around it in order to get beneficial use of the property. Being that we have one on the other side of town, I didn't think that was something that we would consider. And I know that from the standpoint of appearance, it's not going to be something we're looking for. But again, that's why I say half tongue in cheek. I'm not entirely saying no, but it's a pretty darn sure it's not going to fly. But it's just a thought.
Mm-hmm.
That's all.
I like the creativity though, but yeah, it's not what the town had in mind when we preserved it, I don't think.
No.
He was the same one as I said at the last meeting that came up with the idea at Parks and Rec meeting of bringing in goats to clear out all the poison ivy and the stuff on the ground. That was, again, outside the box thinking, something it's not what I do for a living, so I just never even consider it.
And we have some goats in the borough that perhaps we could borrow. I know where they live.
Two-legged or four-legged?
I can't tell from the canal.
They're all four-legged, I believe.
Okay, all right, good.
Gosh.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea. Sheep and goats. I don't know if we have people that are knowledgeable in there's this tree committee in Yardley. I forget what the formal name of it is.
Right.
Shade Tree Commission. Yeah.
Shade Tree Commission. And one of the women came for the walkthrough. We just got to get some sense of what they would suggest to do. We got to start getting some stuff down on paper, and we got to stop talking about this, and we have to show some direction in our planning. And we need their advice. What do they think we can do with what their talents are, thinking in terms of, not spending thousands of dollars for a professional plan necessarily, but something more like what can we do with minimal money to start getting some progress on this woods. And if the people from the professional arborists have some idea, let them make up something for us of a general nature that shows us how to prioritize with our money and how to plan. But I think there are not thousands available to make a detailed professional plan. We need to do this on a humble Yardley budget and as best it can be done in practical sense. If it comes to if it becomes an unwieldy budgetary matter, then, we can just leave it the way it is. At least it gives us green between us and the railroad tracks and the electric wires. but it would sure be nice to get those ugly vines out of there and some of those dead trees that are in the back. You know, so we can, and maybe get some of those, that scrubby poison ivy that's all around in there.
I know on the Shade Tree Commission, one of the people is, I'm pretty sure he's an arborist. He actually has a tree company, Jack Scratchard.
Yeah, Jack Scratchard, yeah. I've reached out to him several times, and I've gotten crickets from him too, unfortunately.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I know
he's,
he's just
he's
taken
really
two
busy.
of his kids back to Wake Forest, so
Right.
I could shoot him a text and ask him if it's something that he would be able to help out with once he calms down a little. Try at least.
yeah. Well, if we
I
can,
know,
if we can get any of these arborists to commit, I'll give their kids free music lessons.
There you go.
well, one comment, I guess, John, on just spending the money to do something. I don't necessarily think it's a good plan because we want the money to be spent effectively. We can spend it easily, but not necessarily head in the right direction with it. So
Yeah, well,
I think it is really important that we have some sort of a plan and
That's
not
why
just
we
do
need
something that's really good.
that's why we got to get some input from these arborists that whether they come from Shade Tree Commission or, you know, professional outfits, somebody who's willing to work with us, realizing it's a community
Right.
project. You know, we do need knowledgeable guidance. All I know is that trees have leaves, and that's, you know, that's not enough to do the job. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll ask Jack. Give him the opportunity to say yes or no if he has time.
And if he has to say no, maybe he has a name he can.
Right. Suggest somebody.
Yeah.
We've got to have another arborist in the borough somewhere.
Isn't that Christine Thomas one? Do you
Oh,
remember?
yeah.
She might
She's a
be.
landscape architect. I think she's a landscape architect, not an arborist. I could be wrong, but
Okay,
I
I
think
can
she's a
find out.
and Anne apparently is a landscape architect as well. So those are good for backfilling, you know, with plantings, but and may very well have enough knowledge to know which ones we can get rid of. And Anne seems to know her trees pretty well based on the walk we did. She might be able to do, you know, as much of that as possible that we can deal with, at least again as a starting point.
Sure. I can find out.
How quickly does the underbrush regrow if you rip it all out? Like, is it something you would have to do like 2-3 times a year or once a year or what?
I think again, we'd have to speak to someone who's a little more knowledgeable than me, but I think that it's going to be no doubt at least an annual, if not biannual, or I should say semi-annual, you know, spring and fall, I guess, that thing.
Because, I mean, we know for sure that all the underbrush has to come out, right? I mean, we're not keeping any of the thorns and the
Right,
poison
right.
ivy, so that could be something that perhaps we have a whole weekend community event this year and just get that out of there, so at least we can walk the property more easily.
Mhm.
Right, and then we just have to make sure the way to dispose of it. Now, Paula, we've talked before. I don't know if you ever had any. We never gotten into detail, but does Ken have access? Does he have costs put together for a chipper and a truck to haul chips away?
Yes. I'm trying to think, does he have a chipper? I'll find out. If not, Bert Mott does, who's a borough resident as well.
Okay.
I'm just
So that could be-
noticing time, and it's almost time for the, oh no, the council meeting's tomorrow. I'm sorry.
Tomorrow.
Oh my gosh, I got all this Zoom on my head here. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt unnecessarily. That's tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll ask Ken tomorrow morning. I'll see him in the morning.
There's not power lines on that side, are they? They're on the other side?
They're all along the tracks.
Because if there's any trees out near the power lines, you can get Asplund to do it for free.
So we could tell them
An
they're
option too.
There are lines along the edge of the woods, but we don't know if they're old telephone lines, if they're still used or not. Some of them are overgrown with vines. They're just totally covered.
Yeah, some of what I saw were grounding wires from the catenaries, from the high power lines down to the ground. They were actually just, some of them were grounding wires. Others could have been anything. I really don't know.
Mhm.
But that wasn't on our property line. That was, I mean, those are all on the railroad line, Conrail, property line.
Yeah,
They were up, they were at the top of the slope. No, not that a tree couldn't fall the wrong way, it certainly could, but,
Yeah, if you
one of the
say,
things we don't-
oh, go ahead.
I'll say one of the things that came to light during that walkthrough was the presence of spotted lanternflies. Are there any funding sources to eradicate? Because what they do is they feed on the invasive species of plants in there, some of that, the grape and some other things. That's what they love and they feed and rest upon. So I don't know if there are any funding sources to help eradicate the spotted lanternfly. There were in multiple stages of development.
Yeah, I don't think so, because I think there's a lot of other areas that have it 100 times worse than we do.
Yeah.
I'll look into it, but I don't think so, because
Yeah,
it's so
just-
widespread.
It's a possibility. Maybe there's something out there that would help fund the removal of these invasive plants.
Mhm.
that we would put towards them.
well, Paula,
Mhm.
it sounds like you have a few people to contact to see what assistance we can get. And I just want to mention my appreciation as an official person of Yardley, how much I appreciate you're willing to call people, because you will know people and have connections that we don't, like Topeka and some of these not more knowledgeable people on committees that know about horticulture and trees. I just appreciate your willingness to mention that you know who to call.
I'm happy to help.
Thank you so much.
No problem.
Chris just joined us, Chris Kavanaugh.
Hey,
Hey,
Chris.
everybody. Sorry I was late. I apologize.
Yeah,
No worries, no worries.
we're just talking about getting some professional people to give us the advice that we need to prioritize and to know how much certain things that have to be done by professional outfits might cost, and what can be done by just knowledgeable people that we have as resources in our community that maybe don't necessarily have to be paid, but should if they have to step up with machines and stuff like that. So we're just, we're kind of still trying to get some kind of a plan going here.
Hey, Chris, just a heads up, I have not heard back from Starker from Bartlett. I made a second shot again today. I just want to give you a heads up that I have not heard back from him yet.
Yeah, and I just kicked his card around, and I thought, oh, I should just leave him a message, but I totally didn't do it. But yeah, I don't know. It seemed really promising when we talked to him. I'm surprised he didn't at least shoot us a follow up at all.
Yeah, it's disappointing. I'm just going back to my emails now to see if there's something I don't see even this evening. So,
Did you tour with him before or after the hurricane?
Before.
So maybe that has
Yeah.
him working hard.
Also, a good point. I'm sure they are very
that
busy.
was still several weeks
Yeah,
after our meeting.
yeah.
But it doesn't take much to say I haven't gotten to it yet. So, my phone's not charging. How about that? I'm not ready to die here.
I can't believe how frequently people don't follow back. I have one person professionally that's worked with us for years, and I keep leaving him messages and voicemails and emails, and it's been 2 or 3 months now. And it's like, well, just tell me if you're not doing it anymore.
Yeah,
Don't leave me hanging.
It must be nice to have so much work. You don't even have to respond to people who want to give you money, but
I know.
yeah.
I
And
know.
we aren't exactly with people offering money. We're looking for something for nothing.
Yeah.
So we kind of go off the top of the list.
We can't say we promised Starker any money because we certainly didn't.
So anyway,
You know, we have a lot of outfits in our area that are people that deal with pruning trees, taking trees down. And I think a lot of them are hungry for work anyway. And if necessary, we can call a couple of these outfits to see what they can do as well as you know, some of the more reputable like places like Save a Tree, or the fellow who came, Brian, the time we walked around the woods, and he seemed to be knowledgeable. There are resources. We got to get something going here.
yeah, that was Jack Scratchard of Silverguard, who walked previously with us. Well, we have to be. I guess we have to be judicious in that we talk to people that are willing to put together a proposal as opposed to price something we want done. Because the problem is we don't know exactly what we want done yet. Now that's part of the problem. So we need to be able to get somebody who's willing to work with us as opposed to just for us.
Mhm.
That's my opinion.
Okay.
I'll reach out again in the morning to Starker and Bartlett. I have another contact at Bartlett I was trying to stay away from because he was the first guy we spoke to. It's not his territory. I don't really want to step on Starker's toes if I can help it. If I'm trying to get something from him, I don't want to pick him off. And I don't really want to go around if I don't have to. That's the thing. That's why I've been avoiding going that route. Maybe that's unavoidable at this point. If we want to consider them.
Yeah,
it
just say something like you're concerned about, is he okay? You haven't heard anything. They'll soften it.
Yeah, okay. Good luck with that.
Is it possible that the Planning Commission in Doylestown has people that they work with, or maybe the Conservancy would have arborists and outfits that have to modify wooded areas, that they would have people that they could recommend, knowledgeable people that would be willing to look at a very small project like this for not necessarily a lot of money or any money, but just to be able to give advice. Or as at one point we were talking about grants of some kind, foundations. I mean, would the county have some input for this?
I can ask around.
Okay, because I mean, they seem, when I was researching this thing with the TOD some years ago and the Reading Woods, they seem to be very helpful and very sympathetic to trying to do this within our little community here. And I just wonder if they wouldn't, wouldn't mind helping to sort of follow up on where it is right now, considering that the borough has stepped up to allow this woods to be preserved. Maybe that shows a good faith effort on the part of Yardley to do something constructive with regard to green land. And maybe they'd have somebody who'd want to help sign on that.
Right.
Where's Paul Bunyan when you need him anyway?
We could also just do a posting on the Lower Makefield is a great place to live and see if any retired arborists are willing to give us, a preliminary plan on what we should keep, and so we can just start at least with ripping stuff out this fall. I'm sure there's someone, not necessarily in Yardley Borough, but in the greater Yardley, in the township, that would be interested in helping.
I think that's a great idea. As many of these things as can be implemented as to the best.
Yeah, we just don't want too many cooks in the kitchen, so I guess we need to make sure once and for all we're not going to hear back from Bartlett.
Yeah. Well, it wouldn't hurt, if two people bump heads trying to get back to us, we can deal with that. But this ongoing indifference is very hard to deal with.
Sure.
Yeah, we're just, we're pretty much inanimate at this point.
Well, the good news is that in talking during our walk in the woods last month, an arborist can tell pretty much 12 months a year whether a tree is wild or not. They don't need to be there to be growth, which that wouldn't be me. I need to see the leaves to know if it's live or dead. But he did assure me that an arborist can tell. It doesn't matter whether it's dormant or whether it's active, whether it's live, or whether it's viable. So that's a good thing.
Okay.
So Caroline, did I hear you volunteer to put that information on the bulletin board?
Sure, I can do that. How else can I help you before the next meeting? What else can I do?
Well, do you own a chainsaw?
I do.
No, I'm only
Maybe a
kidding.
chipper?
No, not one of those, but
Are you allergic to poison ivy?
I'm
Yeah,
not.
oh my God.
You just found yourself a job.
Hey, you know what? That's nice, all in fun. But one of the things that we talked about at the Park and Rec meeting last week was setting up a walkthrough, getting a tour together to go through and take a look, and getting more people, especially if we have some arborists that are interested, maybe to set up something in 2 weeks. We're away all next week, but you don't need me for that. But if we set something up in a couple of weeks to have a tour and kind of an opportunity for people to see what we have there, and maybe more minds tend to come up with more ideas.
Can you
Different
actually
viewpoints.
walk the property right now? It just looks so overgrown. Can you
Yeah.
get in there? You can?
Yeah, once you get in, Carolyn, it's very walkable. It has a pretty good overstory that keeps out a lot of the brush. I mean, there are parts where there are going to be some wineberry, which is like a wild raspberries. You don't want to walk through theirs, but
Right.
most of it you can walk through pretty well. There's some,
Okay.
I mean, a little bit of mosquitoes in there, but I think that's a good idea, Brian. Just to kind of throw it out there, is come tour the woods, see see if we get some interested bodies before you then see if they have some ideas and want to become involved to be some manpower. I think that's a pretty good idea.
In the past, we've talked about Boy Scouts, we've talked about 4-H, we've talked about Pennsbury Environmental Group.
Yeah.
There could be, I don't know whether the Girl Scouts have some interest in that as well, but it could be an open invitation for any groups that might have some interest, or people that are looking to do community service for all good reasons.
Yeah,
I think
I'll mock up some social media PR, and why don't you all send some dates for the tour that might work for you? And we'll try to get a group together. How big do you want? Like I would think there would be a certain point where we'd have too many people on one day, given the size of the woods and what there's to do. But for the tour,
I'd be surprised if we had a problem with that too many people showed up. I don't know. That's just my.
I'm pretty good with social media. No.
All right. Are we promising cookies too?
I'll say
I'm gonna
Rory
go.
will bake cookies. My son has been baking a lot, so get him out, get him away.
Us too.
Right?
Us too. We've been working through Martha Stewart's baking book. It's been pretty bad. A lot of cookies. A lot of cookies.
I think Chris threw down a gauntlet. I think just happened here. I
Yeah.
think we got a
Cookie
challenge. But
All right,
right.
that sounds good.
All right. so, and I'll keep pushing on Bartlett. I'll Paul, you said, is Paul still there? I don't see if she's still there. I
Yep,
don't know.
I'm here.
Okay, I can't see on my screen. You said you were going to try to reach out to Jack Scratchard?
Yep. And I'm looking
And
on the
you-
Lower Makefield page to see if there's anybody else too.
I mean, in this last storm, there was no shortage of tree services in the area. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
there were probably 8 to 10 different firms working in the borough.
Yep.
Like Paula, do you think
No.
Lee Stalker would give it a look?
I think so.
I'm sorry, who was that?
Lee Stalker? That's like the MVP arborist in the area. Always recommended
Oh.
for everything. Yeah.
On the name, okay.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I think we made a lot more progress than I figured based on the early attendance. Good, good.
Dinner ran over. I'm sorry.
Oh, no.
No worries.
You're here. All account. All right. Well, anything else for the good of the order?
Don't think so.
I think that's a good plan to move forward.
Okay, so Carolyn, is there anything that, as far as the meeting, the Borough Council meeting tomorrow, is there anything you need from us at this point for your recommendation or your report to the borough?
No,
You pretty good?
unless there's something specific you want me to share, I'll just give a quick synopsis of what we talked about. But no, and if you think of anything before tomorrow, just let me know. I'll happy to be
Okay.
the mouthpiece, whatever you want to be said.
All right, very
I
good.
think it's notable that there are going to be some social postings or bulletin board postings, and also the inquiries that Paula is good enough to make for us. And we'll have to just see what comes of this and see who steps up. And then we'll have to just take it from there. And as long as the Borough Council is willing to stick by the money they've appropriated so far, then at least we know we've got somewhere to go. And I would just ask that whoever it is on council that applies for these PICO grants, that they do it as soon as it becomes possible to do. And let's get the application in early and hope that that bears some fruit as well.
All
Anybody
right.
closing prayer?
Do we need a motion? Okay.
I think we're done.
Okay.
All right, be
Y'all
well,
have a good night.
everybody.
All right. Thank you very much for participating.
Take
guys.
care, everybody.
Good night, folks.
All
Bye.
right, thank you.
Night.
Paul, I guess I'll end the recording here.
Yep.